Hi there, my name is Shannon Mitchell. Um, the story I'm about to tell you guys, it's very disturbing, um, disgusting, and disgraceful that we live in a world today where this kind of stuff can happen to a person. It honestly blows my mind away. I've reported this to organizations that are there to help us when stuff like this happens, and clearly my concerns were not taken seriously or even looked at. With the information I'm about to show you, you will see, as I see, that there's no way in any God's name that they ever looked at those medical records. But anyhow, yeah, so it's 2019, last October. I'm just finding out that I am a survivor of asbestos. Uh, it was acquired from a catheter that was put into my arm multiple times without any success. Then I was transferred to a better ICU and even was transferred from the small town hospital with one in my leg. So apparently there was issues putting this catheter in me. And uh, yeah, so it's really hard for me to explain things, and I've been sitting all day thinking how I'm going to say this, what I'm going to say, how I'm going to go into it. There's no easy way. There's so many things to my story that is just so unbelievable and just so horrifying and despicable and disgusting. Because of the asbestos that they gave me, I ended up having to have 65% of the tissue cut from my arm. Almost had to have my arm amputated. And I was also a victim of rape and not told about it. You're wondering probably, what is going on here? Yeah. The reason that got me into the hospital, getting the catheter put into my arm, was because the night before I had moved a gentleman who worked with me at work, who I thought I could have trusted at the time. I offered him a place to live at my home, just to have more money, because I was working. I was trying to get my kids back in my home with me, because I had just separated with my ex and I had lost a baby. I actually gave birth to it. He was only 3 months old on the side of the road, and watched him die in my arms and almost bled to death. Had to have 3 blood transfusions. So I kind of needed some time to myself, and I took a step back from the children and had my ex look after them while I got myself in a good state of mind to have the children in my home again, which they were coming home to me the following week when this happened, but that was immediately taken away from me because of this tragedy and lies. I lost 2 of the greatest children in this world because I was listed as unfit. But anyway, sorry that I bounce back and forth. It's because of the brain injury. I don't deliver information, material in a very meaningful way, which is unfortunate for myself. Makes life very difficult. But anyways, so I I moved this guy into my home so he could help me out with bills, and so he could be closer to work, because I lived at a walking distance to work and he didn't have a vehicle, so he thought it would be cool to be able to walk to work, and I thought it would be cool to help me out and whatnot. So I agreed to let him rent a room off me, which he had a bathroom built into his room, like off the side, like there was a bathroom and then a room, so he could have locked himself in there. And we even joked about that. I said, you could lock yourself at any time in there and never have to worry about coming out, because there was even a little bar fridge in there. And he was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So he was just always like, we'll call him Peter for his name is not Peter, but we'll use the name Peter in place of his name. So, Peter, I pick him up. He comes into the house. He flips his backpack on the freezer. I remember him pulling out these cups and straws, and I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm like, you come prepared? And he's like, yeah, I come prepared. And he starts making drinks, and I drink them. And he says he wants to have a shower, and he takes a long time having a shower. And then he gets out, and then he's like, how are you feeling? And I'm like, fine. And I said I wanted to go in town to the local bar and maybe have a drink. And he's like, okay, let's go. And then I'm like, then maybe we can go pick up your clothes and all your stuff, so you can move into that room. And he's like, yeah, okay. So we went into the bar. The bar was closed. And then we went over to my friend's house. I went into the bathroom with her, was talking about how she wanted to put this purple color hair dye in her hair. And we were in there talking and giggling and laughing, and I was kind of like all over her, which was very odd for me because my friend told me about this afterwards. She's like, you were all over me, and I'm like, that's really weird because I'm not usually that kind of person, and I had only had 2 drinks, so I figured that was really weird. Then we were going to leave their house. At that point in time, I could have drove back to my house, but I didn't want to take the chance and get caught for drinking and driving, so I figured I'd let him drive the car. So he drove the car back to the house. I remember we stopped at the store, we grabbed scratch tickets. I even paid for it, I believe. I think I paid for it with my debit card, I believe, and I have a copy of that shows that I used my debit card. So anyways, he was like all over, climbing all, like we were touching each other and stuff, like heading back to the house. And then I remember us sitting on the couch and him forcing my head to perform oral sex on him, and me just kind of like thinking, oh my God, this guy is a bit crazy. And then me just waking up in the hospital with a breathing tube down my throat and the worst pain of my life. But he claims to have told police that I was in the bathroom with that friend, and when I came out, I couldn't walk or talk, but then later turns around and tells police that I was full of life, not sleepy at all. So which was it, buddy? Do you think she gave me something that knocked me out? Because now you're saying I was full of life, not sleepy at all. And he also claimed to have told my witness, who called police, that he walked all the way home that night. Now he claims he was picked up by police, which really worries me and scares me too about this world too, like when I think about that side of it, but I won't get into that part. But anyways, so yeah, this is what prompted police to come to my home. So this is a letter from my star witness, which I'm not going to mention her name, but she writes, in the late part of the afternoon on March 29th, I arrived to Grail Springs for shift in the kitchen. In the late part of the afternoon on March 29th, Peter arrived to Grail Springs for his shift in the kitchen. He seemed really edgy. When I saw him in the staff room, he immediately asked me if Shannon had come into work. I told him she had not and that we could not get in touch with her. Peter told me that he had hoped Shannon hadn't offed herself. He said that he had been at her home that evening before and she was drinking very aggressively and having wanting to have sex with him, so he left and walked all the way back to town, about 5 kilometers, in the middle of the night. I felt sick to my stomach about it. I never did return to work and he never did return to work that day. She said she immediately went to the front desk and spoke with Marie, who just came off her shift at the front desk, and she ran into Peter in the parking lot. She also was concerned that Peter's behavior. I told Barbara what Peter had said in the staff room, and that I was extremely concerned about Shannon's safety and well-being. We discussed what we should do. The owner of this place had instructed the staff not to get involved. Then they called the women's shelter, where Shannon had already familiar people working that she knew. And then that's when they came to my home, found me in my kitchen, naked, I didn't even know I was found naked till I started looking into this 3 years later. This particular person was never interviewed. I was never interviewed. I've had conversations with Brendan. He's told me that he's told police, and both him and police believe that that person had given me something that night that knocked me out. And they were okay with the fact that he said that he then turns around and says I was full of life, not sleepy at all when he left me. So he's saying now that he claims he's been picked up by police. Police can't get in touch with him, and that's apparently his right. It talks about me having strange dark purple bruising between legs, black eye, blood noted in anal 3 days later after already doing an anal swab, dark red marks on side of head. I actually have a bald spot. I don't know if you can see it, a big bald spot that never grows hair. I can never wear my hair in a ponytail because of this motherfucker. Sorry, my language. I'm just so hateful towards this person. My whole entire body is scarred, physically, mentally, emotionally. I don't feel like the same person. I'll get into that part of it in a little bit here, but this whole thing has just rocked my world. Yes, this hospital saved my life, but this hospital also took away my life, took away my future, my well-being, my everything, and it just honestly disgusts me. Anyhow, so that's what got the whole search out looking for me or whatnot, was because of this particular person, who I also have a memory of him when we get back to the house. Sorry, I forgot to mention this part. Him saying, "Oh, it smells chemical." And me being an idiot, I drank it because I had no clue. Like, I just was so dumb and stupid that I didn't really understand. I don't know. But anyhow, then I was picked up, so I'm found, I'm laying there. My oxygen saturation, which I will show you here in the report, says that it was a level 92%, so it was slightly low, but it says that I was getting better as I was going to hospital, and I think when I started to go downhill was when I developed this infection from them trying to put this catheter in me to give me the Narcan to try and wake me up. And this infection almost damn near took my life. And it was not mentioned to me. It was not mentioned in the discharge summary, but there's paper documentation of it in the medical records. But something as, and my OHIP bills show the blood poisoning, spasmia, I can never say it properly, blood poisoning in my OHIP bills as well. So this did occur, it did happen. I had blood clots in my arm, not compartment syndrome. You see, they told me that when they found me, I was laying on my arm and that I had suffered a heart attack, and it caused a condition called compartment syndrome, which is where the blood flow didn't get into the tissue properly and it starts to die. So that made very sense to me. It was a fat doctor. I had just suffered brain injury. I'll get into all that too. I was completely not all there. Like, I'm in a better place now. I'm still not 100%, but I'm in a better place now than I was then. But when I first woke up, I didn't know left from right. I didn't know I had a car for 5 months. I was walking over 2 blocks with a bum arm and groceries back to the shelter, the women's shelter that I got thrown into, with a bummed arm because and then I said to my friend, she's like, I have a car. And I'm like, oh. She's like, you have a car, you idiot? Like, what the heck? Let's go get it. And we went and got my car, and I started driving my car to get my groceries and stuff. Like, I was completely, like, I know that I look like I'm, like, normal and well put together, whatever, but, like, inside, after suffering something like this, it's so traumatic. I was peeing myself and crapping myself for months afterwards. I had pins and needles down one side of my body. I couldn't sleep. I was struggling so much emotionally. I didn't want to complain because I was trying to get visits with my daughter, because they lied to me and told me this was an acetaminophen overdose. And upon getting the medical records, I see that it was not an acetaminophen overdose. The test was a false positive and high for amphetamine. It needed a more chemical component to figure out what was triggering that false positive and high. And that broad spectrum, so doing a spectrum search of a broadness of all all drugs associated. That's what they had to do. And they sent it off to a place called St. Michael's, and they had the test done. And then the test came back, and it even says on it, I'll show you here too in 2 seconds, it says a repeat on a diluted sample, and it shows those drugs. And then the other tests that follow those ones afterwards are very suspectable for this type of drug to be administered. We're talking, we got high levels of this and that are all associated with this particular drug. But now that I got the medical records and I asked them about this date rape drug, they claim that they gave this to me to incubate me. Which to me makes no sense, because for starters, they knew I had been drinking quite heavily the evening before. They were suspected that it was possibly a Percocet overdose. My temperature was 33. My hands and feet were malting. My heart rate was decreasing. I was barely alive. And they're going to tell me they pumped me full of sedatives? No, they didn't. They gave me this other drug, and it starts with an R. I'll look at it and I'll show you in a minute here, which is a non-sedative kind that doesn't cause... You don't use... Sedatives work the same way in the brain as alcohol does, and too much of it can cause me to be more dead. And it clearly says a gazillion times throughout these medical records that Shannon was a level 3 state on 0 sedation. And there was no decreased levels of consciousness like they claimed to have told the College of Physicians. They claimed to have told the College of Physicians that it was a positive for amphetamine, and that it was positive for amphetamine, and that there were decreased levels of consciousness, and yeah. So they think that, but it's clearly not that. So the first piece of evidence that I'll show you here is the test. And you'll see here that an acetaminophen is only detected afterwards, after spending the broad spectrum, because it was so barely in my system. We're talking 13.5. Danger is 999. And they tell me it's an acetaminophen overdose. Acetaminophen multi-drug overdose, if that makes a lot of sense, but I'll show you here. So there's the test. It shows that it was a false positive and high for amphetamine. It says it needs a more alternative chemical component to figure out what's triggering that. So we have that piece of evidence there. So we're all agreeing on that. We have the thing here that shows the acetaminophen level being only 13.5. Acetaminophen level 13.5. Danger is 999. So it's very, very, very unlikely that this was an acetaminophen overdose. Come on. And it says right there that the broad spectrum talk screen report, broad spectrum, is being sent to St. Michael's. I don't know if you can see that. Broad spectrum to be sent to St. Michael's. And then here we have the repeat on a diluted sample. I don't know if you can see that. Repeat on a diluted sample. And here's where we get into the tricky stuff here. This is where it shows us the date rape drugs. I don't know if you see that on there. See where that says? St. Michael's. St. Michael's Hospital, where you said you were sending it. On a diluted sample, meaning done on the first blood drawn from when I first laid my bum on your hospital bed. Look at these. All common signs of that drug. All common signs. Wait. Here. Again, all common signs of this drug. hold on, I'm just going to do something here. Just want to make sure you're actually seeing it. So they're all common in this drug. I don't know if you can see it. I just want to make sure it's on there. But I'm looking at it and I'm thinking it's going to be backwards to you guys, but I don't know if it is or not. I'm sorry, I can't think with my brain here. Here is a really cool piece of evidence. The what is it? History. Oh, they're saying spectus thrombosis on April 9th, which is when I believe shit went down. So here, I wonder if I can transfer this like to go. Oh, hold on. Sorry. So here we have spectus thrombosis, April 9th. Oh, look what we have here. Looky, looky, looky here. The endotube has bacteria. Do you see that? I'll link a thing to my site where you can actually go and physically see these sheets where they're not going to be backwards. Here is another one. Again, none of this is mentioned in the discharge summary. I don't know if you can read that. Here, I was followed by infection control. I don't know if you can read that. Followed by infection control. Another piece of evidence in my medical records. There's no patient transportation report going from from Belleville to Kingston Hospital, because they're saying that I was awake the next day and that they I was awake the next day and that they caught the compartment syndrome right away, and that I was then transferred to Kingston Hospital, which is not accurate, because I remember being awake and only being awake a period of time. I was not in a coma, or I was not only out for one night. It was definitely more than, sorry, the baby spit up on my shirt. It was definitely more than one day, because you don't have to, a person doesn't have to learn how to walk again after one day of being in a coma. It just doesn't happen that way. A shout out to anybody who may know any of these people, because I've searched them on the nurses site. They don't come up as people. Sorry guys, you put some fake people's names in there. That's not cool. Not cool at all. Starters, I forgot to show you. This is what my arm looks like, what I'm stuck with, what I'm left with because of this sick individual. See how deformed it looks? Really serious infection, guys. Nurses out there, doctors, you gotta be careful, man, and you gotta give people some respect, man. Like, yeah, you saved my life, but at the same time, look at the shit you did to me. This was the top part of my arm. It was a hole. They weren't even sure if that was gonna close up on its own. This was the bottom part of my arm. It was disgusting. I looked at it and thought every day, how the hell am I ever gonna look normal? Like, I look like a monster. This is my friggin' side, like, I already showed you guys the bald spot, but I also have a big scar on my leg too as well that is just disgusting looking too. Look at here. This is going from Kingston to Belleville Hospital. They say that I was awake the next day. Belleville General Hospital says that. But then they have me going back into a coma going to Kingston Hospital, and then I'll go back into a coma there, I think, until the 4th, and then they have me extubated on the 4th. But here they say GC level of 3 and still no change. But in their writing and stuff, where you can see I have proof of clear amendments, where they've amended me from being awake and moving all 4 limbs to giving me Narcan to try to wake me up. They say that I wasn't there in April, but there's testings that were done in April and reviewed in April. It's a huge mess, like these medical records. This is a photocopy of the medical records. The CTC scan is a photocopy, and they don't know where the originals went for that. This is a report here that I find very hilarious. You can clearly see where they've amended it from being awake to not awake. They have, hold on, get this so you can see it. I'm going to put a link on my thing that'll show you all these pages so you can see where, so it's basically got me, it says here on this sheet, oh, this says on no sedation. Sorry, this is the one that says patient received for oral care incubated fentanyl and rocamona given to patient upon transfer and infused at present time. Patient is on any sedation, does not respond to any stimulation, pupils measuring blah blah blah, center line in left jugular, which they've changed it from left to right, which the photo clearly shows that it was indeed in my left side, not my right, like they've amended it to. And then why on the 14th of April are they putting a new catheter in the right side if it was in the right side and there was no trouble with it? That makes no sense to me. The documentation is poorly. As you can see, there's no time stamped on it. It just simply says 0, which is just ridiculous and outrageous and just extreme. Like, I can't believe this. Temperature of 33 degrees. Like, come on. I was in shock. This report here is supposed to be filled out by a Dr. Watkins. He was the one that did this particular treatment on this day. It's not filled out by Dr. Watkins. It's filled out by a different gentleman, the guy that did the apparent surgery on the 31st, which makes no sense. This talks here about how bad off I was. So definitely in shock. They were going to airlift me from Bancroft to Belleville. That's how bad I was. This shows that I was in a coma. It says here, sister, continue to follow family concern. Patient may be aggressive when she wakes up on April 4th. When I wake up from a nap or a coma, buddy. Here, this one here says, oh, now they try to claim that my oxygen saturation upon finding me, where we already know that it said that it was 92%. They're trying to claim now here that it was a 61%, and they presume I'd been that way all night and all day. And these doctors never thought to give me a brain scan? Come on, people. This says a Doppler was done on my arm on the 9th, which is when I'm presuming I got the blood clots from this infection in my arm and caused me to almost have my arm amputated. Poison control. Acetaminophen papers that poison control claims that they claim that poison control faxed them. Here is a correct poison control thing. This is one that they definitely did fax. It says sick kids there, and it has the telephone on the side, and it's for lithium because they presume it could have been a lithium overdose. And this is what the poison control paper for the acetaminophen looks like. And you see on there that they claim that it shows like it's been a fax. It's got the numbers on the top of it and whatnot. I got the reports from poison control. They never faxed them acetaminophen. They didn't fax them that. In fact, those poison control records have been altered as well, too, because it talks about it being a Percocet overdose. There's never any talk of this being a Percocet overdose and that I was recovering quite well in all this. But that's not what they're claiming. Rash on head and left eyeball, between legs, purple discoloration. A woman not given a rape test who's found naked in their home with dark purple bruises between their legs? Come on, holy grail. Are we serious here? Do we live in a world where this does happen? Where people can be found naked and not even be told that they're found naked and not even be given a rape test? That makes no sense to me. No sense. It says here, her mother it was in clinic today. She feels that there is a change in personality. She wonders if this is going to improve spontaneously. If she has ongoing concerns, I suggest she discuss this with you. I see her follow up in 3 weeks for her arm. Wow, they let me leave the hospital knowing I had a personality change. I was peeing myself and crapping myself in the hospital too. They told me, oh, don't worry, just stress. Nobody said to go get your head checked. I get I get a brain scan done now that I've looked at all these things and find out that I have a brain lesion. 90% of them are preventable and treatable with medication. I didn't even get the chance. This GC level of 3, like, there was no decreased levels of consciousness here, buddy. It says emergency transfer, abnormal or deteriorating neurological status, life-threatening, emergency approved. Going from Bancroft to Belleville, it shows that I was still life-threatening emergency. There's no way this drug was given to me, and I'll show you why I know this drug wasn't given to me. And patient not able to get out of bed independently. April 16th, I couldn't get out of bed. It's not even me up and documented, isn't even me up and moving until the end of April. So there's no way that I sat there for a whole month and did nothing. Says April 11th, patient under plastics, unsure of what procedures to follow next. Oh, here, they have me back in a coma here. See, X-intubation on the 4th. No DVT on U.S. extremities there, bud. Do you see that? Oh, this is a really fun piece of evidence here. I was given a blood transfusion. I had no idea I had a blood transfusion until I got these medical records. Nobody told me anything, but I had a blood transfusion. Apparently that didn't become law until 2017. That's what I was told by KHG. But that didn't become law until 2017. Pages, multiple pages, just wiped out. And you see how it has numbers on the bottom? Well, and you see how it says critical care flow on the bottom? And you see how this top says interpersonal? Well, that's like that for quite a few of the medical records, and then it switches over and it no longer is numbered at the bottom, and it says interpersonal and interpersonal on the bottom. So you can clearly tell that that's been altered. So there's pages and pages that have been wiped out. Here is my OHIP bills. You can see on there it says Spesnia blood poisoning. Make sure it says that. This one says that. Yeah. Spesnia blood poisoning on there. So it's on there a couple different times, like a bunch of times. Here we have the oxygen saturation where it says that it was normal. It was just 92%, not 61% like they were claiming. The first day I'm up and moving and meeting the person, the EMT person, is not till the end of April there. Talking with a online doctor